This is Blake Atwood with FaithVillage.com. We're talking with Ken Coleman, host of his own syndicated radio talk show, aptly named The Ken Coleman Show, and author of One Question, Life-Changing Answers from Today's Leading Voices. Aside from your first ever interview with Coach Krzyzewski, of all people, whose name most people can hardly even pronounce, who, out of all the interviews you've done, who are you most nervous to interview?
Jack Welch. I was really nervous to interview Coach K, as you mentioned, because it was the first one I did. He was a legend. But after that one, I've not been nervous in a long time. I was really nervous to interview Jack Welch this spring because Jack's tough. You know, he's a tough guy. He says exactly what's on his mind, and he's just an amazing guy. So I was a little nervous for Jack. Little butterflies for Jack.
Gotcha. So who were you most excited to interview?
Probably Pat Summitt. I'm such a huge basketball fan, and you know, I knew I was going to sit down with one of the top 2 or 3 great coaches that's ever put a whistle on or in the game of basketball, and I got 30 minutes with her, and of course she's in the book as well. And this was before she, you know, obviously was diagnosed with early onset dementia, Alzheimer's. But I was really excited. It was in the locker room at the University of Tennessee in their waiting room. They kind of have this like lounge waiting room in the locker room for family, and that was fun. I really was excited about that one. And I'd have to say Coach Dungy was another one. And again, Coach K is the ultimate interview for me, so he's always number one. But Coach Dungy was a lot of fun.
What interviewee made you laugh the most?
Easy one here, Josh Hamilton, the former all-star, not former, he's an all-star outfielder now with the Anaheim Angels. At the time, he was with the Texas Rangers, and he came to Catalyst, and I interviewed him in front of 13,000 people. And it was like a David Letterman-style interview because he's just kind of a big boy, you know. And I said a couple funny things, and he responded well, and then we just kind of went on this 5-minute riff where we were just laughing. And it was just one of those fun interviews. And so that was the most fun, and I laughed the most of any interview I've ever done. That was really fun.
Gotcha. I don't know if you knew, but we're based in Texas.
Oh yeah.
So we still like Josh, but you know it's a little hard to talk about still.
I know, it's a little sensitive.
What interviewee made you cry, if anyone?
Katie Davis. You know, I didn't cry mid-interview, but I read her book and prepared, and I got a little weepsy when after she was finished. We brought Brad Lomenick out on stage, and we told her we were going to fund her kids' college. All those girls. Katie, let me back up. Katie is the author of Kisses from Katie. Unbelievable little lady who's, as a single gal, goes over at 19, goes back in her early 20s, and decides to give her life to Uganda, and has adopted 14 girls. Just extraordinary story, and the book remains a bestseller. It's just a phenomenal book, Kisses from Katie. So I would say that one. And then I'll share one quick story. On my radio show back in March or April, we were doing a series every week on child predators and child sex abuse. And we were doing it for parents and just waking them up to the realities, of our world. And I had an expert on, and she was talking about a local center where they take in kids that have been sexually abused and what she experiences in those little innocent kids. And it caught me as a father. I have a 7 and a 5 and a 4. And this has never happened to me, Blake, but I openly wept on the radio. It just got me, and I choked up for good 20-30 seconds just thinking about those precious children. So that's the only other time. That's actually the only time I've ever lost it mid-interview.
That's hard.
Yeah, tough stuff, but good stuff that we got to talk about. As parents, we got to be awake.
Sure. Katie Davis was actually one of our earliest interviews.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, it's fascinating that somebody so tiny could have a heart so big.
That's a great statement.
Yeah. So who have you not interviewed that you'd love to interview?
Oh my gosh, Blake, we don't have time. I mean, we will run out of internet usage. How about I give you a quick top 5 of people that I'd love to interview?
Sure.
Love to interview Bill Cosby. Love some of the things he said about fatherhood. As a child of the 80s, The Cosby Show was like the greatest thing ever. So I'd love to interview Bill Cosby. I think we'd have a lot of fun. I think we'd cover some really good ground. I'd love to interview Bill Clinton. I don't agree with his politics, but I'm fascinated by the man and what he went through. He created his own problem, but the fact that he stayed the course, there's just a lot about that man that fascinates me. His ability, he's a phenomenal communicator, great connector when he's with people. I think he'd be a fascinating interview. I've interviewed one president. I'd like to interview him. I'd love to interview Robin Williams. I'm fascinated by the comedic mind and people that are so quick and so funny. That'd be a fun interview. That'd be a fun one. In the world of sports, I'd love to interview Tiger Woods. Because he just seems like a challenge to me. You know what I mean? Like, for some reason, Blake, and maybe this is megalomaniac talking here, but I think I could get him to talk to me. I mean, really talk to me. I'm fascinated by him as well. And then a fifth, maybe a musician. I would love to interview Garth Brooks. I saw Garth Brooks' last concert in Vegas. Crazy deal. A friend of mine gave me the tickets because he couldn't go, and I was already out there with my wife and my in-laws. Saw his last concert. It was unbelievable, Blake. I got to tell you, whether you like country music or not, this guy, fascinating, great storyteller. Here's a guy that walked away from, I mean, just massive success to spend time with his family. He's just a guy that I think would be a fun interview. So there's 5.
What app are you addicted to, if any?
I'm addicted to Instagram right now.
Cool. What's your Instagram handle?
Ken Coleman Show.
Gotcha. Try to get you a few more followers. What books are you reading?
Right now I'm reading 2 books because I do this. I'm reading The Broker by John Grisham. Started reading it on my trip to Singapore last week just to help myself fall asleep and take my brain off things. And I'm just now cracking open a book on habits. What is it? Here we go. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. The Power of Habit. It's all research-based, and it's a lot of data about how companies and individuals have totally turned their lives around by changing their habits. That's very intriguing to me.
Interesting. So what's one little-known fact about Ken Coleman?
That I was born in a town of 6,000 people in West Virginia. A little river town called Point Pleasant, West Virginia. My family's not West Virginian, but my dad started a church there right out of college as a 22-year-old, and so I spent the first 11 years of my life there. So I think that's probably a little-known fact.
Cool. That sounds like a city name in a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, right. It's a teeny little town. It's contracted now to about 4,200 people, so it's a really small town. You just wouldn't believe how small it is.
So as a kid, what did you think you'd be when you grew up?
I was absolutely convinced I would be a United States Senator. Very early on, got a taste for politics. Ronald Reagan was a hero, still is a hero, and I thought I was going to be a lawyer and then run for office. And God just kind of tweaked that. I really felt that still into my late 20s that I would run for office, just not the lawyer part. It turns out I hate school, so that's a little problematic. I'm a guy that likes to ask real questions, but you put me in a room where I got to study and listen and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to happen. I learn by asking my own questions. So that's what I thought I was going to be. So, but let me be very, very clear. I don't sense any urging at all to run for office anymore. The media is where I'm at, and God's given me a platform there, and I can influence way more people there, and a lot less hate mail.
Gotcha. So you're not going to be Hillary Clinton's VP?
No.
Okay. We just need to make that clear.
Yes, we should probably go ahead and get that out there.
Yeah. So last question. If you had the opportunity to ask Jesus one question, what would it be?
Oh, that's from a question geek, I'm geeking out right now because I've never thought of that. I was going to ask Jesus one question, what would I ask? It would be around his death. And I think I would say something like, I know you loved us, but did you ever question your God? I mean, you're God in the flesh. You're the Son of God. At any point during the suffering, did you have a second thought? Is that bad that I would ask that?
I don't think so. It's always fascinated me that he wonders why God forsake. I don't even know what the past tense of that word is. Forsook him.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a question outside of the bounds.
No, because he did ask that question, you know, and I think that's what I'd ask.
Yeah.
Going through you're God in the flesh. What's going through your mind when you're being tortured, knowing that you could literally snap your fingers and everyone would melt? I think it would be somewhere around there, because I by nature am not a very self-disciplined person. I mean, I'm driven. You know what I mean? But, like, I'm not the super self-disciplined guy who can just run 20 miles every day and eat nothing but kale. You know what I mean? I'm just not that guy. And so I think that would fascinate me, that here you are, the most powerful person in the universe. What kind of willpower? It's just pretty amazing to me. Or does he say, you know what, no, I never second guess because I'm God, you know? So I wonder, John Eldridge talks a lot about heaven, and I know I'm going too long here, so I just wonder if literally we're going to be able to ask those kinds of questions. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, if we can't ask those questions, what kind of line are we talking about? I don't know. Crazy things that I think about.
Yeah, well, my more cynical nature assumes that the answer would be something like the end of Job.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like, who are you to ask me these kind of questions?
Right. Yeah, it's probably true. Probably true.
Hard stuff. Someday we'll know, maybe.
Yes.
So thanks for your time today, Ken. I really appreciate it. So be sure to buy a copy of One Question by Ken Coleman in the Faith Village bookstore at store.faithvillage.com.
Nice.
Listen to or watch the Ken Coleman Show at kencolemanshow.com, and you can connect with Ken on Twitter at Ken Coleman. And then don't forget onequestionbook.com, where you can get 3 free chapters. And that's it. I really appreciate your time, Ken.
Yeah, Blake, so grateful that you did this, and really, really love what Faith Village is doing and what you guys are about.